For me, the interest in him came from the kind of person it took to be someone like him during that period. In this day and age, it's a bit more usual, but to be one of the first people to start the team and to start the process of deniable operations took a certain type of person. And that's what's fascinating about him. I have a lot of friends who have served in those sort of units, and I feel a sense of duty to represent them properly. And while this is less of an historical documentary and more of a character piece, I wanted to put that sense of fun into these characters as well as the danger. They're extraordinary people, but they were also slightly mad. I wanted to reinvigorate my love for filmmaking. I wanted to get back into a job which was going to be the most enjoyable and really sort of get my creative juices flowing again. And so when I heard that Guy was doing this, it was an immediate draw. For me, my most enjoyable job has probably been The Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Guy, and arguably my best job as well. And so the opportunity to come back on to a project like this, to work with Guy with this sort of subject matter, was a no-brainer for me. And so I jumped in with both feet very eagerly. I'm very happy to be here. Operation Postmaster was an incredible plan because, as I say, it removed Nazi, or it stalled Nazi dominance in the Atlantic with their submarines. They were an absolute terror on any of our supply chains and any of our warships. And so it really did change the course of the war. I mean, had this not been successful, then Hitler could have won within weeks. The mission in this movie is so important because it was about removing Nazi Germany's U-boat dominance in the Atlantic, and by U-boats I mean submarines. And the war would probably have been lost had this mission not been successful. And Gus's line, whether it has still survived or not, I'm not too sure, but him saying we're giving birth to deniable operations is important because of the time. It was something that was unthought of. It's in the title, Ungentlemanly warfare, but they weren't going to win otherwise. And that's one of the special things about people like Winston Churchill, is that he could see the wood through the trees. And it was about, I mean, I'm sure he had many failings as a man, but one thing he did right was win the war. And if he didn't, by doing things like this and forming teams like this, then we'd be living a very different life now. Alan's wonderful to work with. I've been looking forward to working with him for a while. I saw him in Reacher and thought his work was absolutely fantastic in that. And I was keen to see what kind of actor he is. And he's a very intelligent actor. He's very thoughtful. He's done his homework. He cares. He's subtle, he's nuanced, and that's a pleasure to work with. And he's also very funny. He's a lovely chap, and lovely to be around on set. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with him again someday. The wonderful thing about Guy Ritchie is that he's excellent at crafting character, but you can't just be excellent at crafting character. There have to be people who can pull that off. And this team of actors is very good at pulling that off. They bring their own little piece of something to each of these roles, which make them unique and not just a carbon copy of something that Guy's trying to portray. Everyone has their challenges as a character, and everyone fills their role so wonderfully, and it's great to see. I mean, working with Hero in particular has been a real pleasure. I think he's the youngest of us by a fair margin, and there's some real talent there. I love being on the water, and so the opportunity to actually be at sea again while shooting was extraordinary. I think in this day and age, one would normally expect to be on a green screen stage, and at most on a gimbal, but not even that, maybe just a bit of camera movement like this. But something about being on the water, something about being off such a beautiful coastline like we have here in Turkey, it really helps sell the world and the feeling, and so you can really get in touch with it. And also it creates a wonderful bond between the cast and the crew and everyone on that particular vessel, because we're not getting to just disappear off to our various corners and our various stations, and we're on the boat all day long, come rain or shine, and it feels like a real camaraderie gets built that way. And this is such a magnificent crew. Everyone is so good at what they do, and they have such a good approach to it. It's the only other movie I've laughed so much on was Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I love being back here. Absolutely love it. I think Guy Ritchie's brand of creativity will bring something to this that will make it, and I'm not saying that historical documentaries are unwatchable, but they can sometimes come across as information. And I think with today's viewers, things need to be interesting, things need to have a sense of fun. And while it is historical, we're talking about an historical event, an actual mission that happened. We're also playing with the characters a bit to access an audience which is going to enjoy these characters. And so Guy's creativity, Guy's character genius is playing a major part in that. Expect a characterful, fun ride. This is, as much as it's about a very, very serious operation and a very serious time in human history, it is actually presented in a way that is devil-may-care sort of attitude of these extraordinary individuals. And it's a laugh, which I think a lot of these people may have had because they were dancing around the edges of madness, and that's what made them special and capable for this kind of mission. And so people can expect to see unusual characters doing bombastic things.
Being approached about this movie was a unique experience. I was filming Reacher, and I got a call from my team that Guy Ritchie had a film, and he wanted me to take a look at the script. So I read it over a weekend and was, this is the kind of movie I think actors dream about doing, and of course working with Guy, it's anybody would say yes. So I'm reading the script going, I don't know, there was no character attached to it. They just wanted me to read it, and I loved it. I was riveted by the story, and I also couldn't really get a gauge of like who they were interested, because it could go either way. There was one character that was written like he was huge. There was another character that I was very interested in because he's kind of he's the character I'm playing now, but he was a badass. And so I was like, I told my team I loved the script, and Guy wanted to jump on a Zoom. So I get on a Zoom with Guy, and usually, there's like a few minutes of chit chat and you get to know each other. And then it's like, okay, so let's talk about this character. Let's talk about this movie. What do you see? What do I see? Is our vision aligned? And there was none of that. He was like, you look like a barbecue, kind of. You love barbecues. You want to have a barbecue with me? And I was like, sure, I'd love to have a barbecue with you, Guy, anytime. He was like, do you want to do the movie? I was like, sure, I'd love to do the movie if you would like for me to do the movie. He was like, great, let's do the movie. I was like, okay. So I called my team and I was like, I think I just got the offer for the movie. I don't know if that was sincere. It seems too easy. But that was it. And then we did a deal for the movie, and then I'm playing Anna's Lesson. Henry is the first one there, last to leave, always knows his stuff, is always positive. here to help make the movie the best movie it can be, and he leads by example. I'm so impressed. I've got a show where I'm number one, and I understand the pressure that is, the responsibility that is, and how people look to you and then decide what kind of movie are we making based on, what number one's approach is. I'm so impressed by who he is, seeing firsthand how he operates. So I've really enjoyed working with him so far. Working with Guy Ritchie is unlike any experience I've ever had, and it's simultaneously the scariest and most exhilarating creative endeavor I've been a part of. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I realized right away Guy's process is this very exciting, organic, let's make sure that we've reimagined the best of what this could be, and if it's similar to what's on the page, great, and if not, even better. So it really puts you on your heels as an actor, especially when you're playing a character like so foreign to you. But then you realize tonally, this film is something totally different to Guy, which is why he's so good at what he does. He can put a stylized, personalized fingerprint on something that's just so him. And that's what he did for us, just right out of the gate. There was sort of a cool factor to everything these characters did, a pace and a rhythm that was very offbeat. If you think you're coming in as like, a traditional army, you're running towards the front of the battlefield, like it was anything but that. There was a casual, nonchalant nature to the way these characters moved, and it made it funny. It was great to be out at sea, and I was pulling up to the ship one day with Henry Cavill, and I looked at him and I was like, this doesn't happen, Only movies like this bring you to places like this, where we look behind us, we've got the mountains of Turkey, these beautiful azure waters, and this old pirate ship that we're pulling up to. I was like, this TV doesn't give you this. Very few jobs do. I said, this is like a dream, and he was like, agreed. It's just so cool to be a part of something like this. This cast, the main cast that I work with, Cavill, Pettifer, Golding, and Hero, we've got a group of varying degrees of experience and age, and a bright demographic. It's the kind of cast you dream about working with in like an ensemble piece like this. But it's when you get to know them as people, this is an egoless bunch who have all figured out a way to craft really distinct, unique voices for their characters, and it's so fun to watch everybody work. There's kind of a mutual love affair. Everybody looks at everybody else's character and they're like, oh, that's so good, it's so funny, oh, you're the best character in this. And I was like, no, you're the best, I watch you, and I'm like, this is amazing, I can't wait. And everybody, I think, just can't wait to see everybody else on screen, and that's definitely how I feel. And I think when you get that kind of chemistry, the audience wins. The Fernando Poe mission is a story of the underdogs triumphing with the most impossible circumstances, and if you study the history of these characters, the journals, the diaries, the paperwork that they had to fill out at the end of each mission to explain, there's a really solid picture about what these guys went through, and they were always the underdogs. I mean, they never had the tools they needed. It would be so much easier to air raid that port and just decimate these ships and the areas where the Nazis had the turrets, guarding them. I mean, there were tools at the disposal of the Allied forces, but again, it was so politically precarious that they couldn't use those tools. So to have a group of guys who have to go in without the tools they need, nothing but the heart and the will and the mind to find a way to succeed at all costs, and then to see them do it is amazing. And we're seeing the truth of that come to life on screen. This is real. This is real heroics. I mean, it's one thing to play it. It's one thing to enjoy it on screen. It's another thing to know that these guys did this. These guys did this. There are real stakes here. when I started studying these characters, I read 3 books about both the character that I play and the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, these declassified documents in 2012. And I'm disappointed that I didn't know more about these characters and these stories already, that, you know, we're not like taught the lore of who these guys were in school. They're so heroic. And I think anytime you have these kind of protagonists that are historical but larger than life, they deserve to be seen in all their glory. You know, the size and scope of what they were, their stature, you know, deserves to be spread across that large screen, I think. So I think it's the only way to see this.
It follows the conception of the SOE, which is the Special Operations Executive. And this was a bunch of chaps that Winston Churchill put together, unbeknownst to the entire sort of rest of the British government, to undergo certain operations in which needed highly classified individuals to accomplish things that would steer the war into more of a, I suppose, a British kind of, I don't know.
Up to that point,
I know, I was doing pretty well, wasn't I?
Brilliant answer. And I was so happy that I'm doing EPK with you, because that is just on point. But yeah, it was like more to steer the war into a different direction. Like, these guys were a pinnacle point of a really scary time.
When you go meet Guy for the first time, it's not to talk about the film, it's to talk about just general things. If you're not going to be a pain in his butt on the movie, or sort of mess with other people's sort of vibes, so it's a vibe check. When you go see Guy for the first time, it totally is a vibe check, and
It's like seeing the headmaster.
yeah, and we're lucky to have, you know, individuals, actors who have had amazing careers and super successful and very different, and sort of put together. And there's not a single ego, there's not a single kind of moment where we've been waiting for somebody. It really has been a huge kind of family and a massive camaraderie. So I think that's what shines on screen. And I think a lot of people watching will be like, oh my God, I wish I was like, you know, a part of that bad bunch, because they look like they're having fun. And we are. That's the great thing. We're having so much fun on set.
Yeah. And I, to add to that, like, yeah, there's that amazing friendship that's formed when you are, you know, working together, creating art, being creative. But where I go back to the steering of the narrative that Guy creates is that the characters that he forms, and it really is him forming these characters and kind of letting you run a little bit with it, but there's like a guideline that he creates individuality, you know, a unique individuality between each character that kind of bonds and gels with the other. Yeah, that also adds this layer of like friendship, but unique friendship, which yeah, it's very fun. He knows everything that is going to be shot, he knows everything that's going to happen, he knows the dynamic, but I think he creates the spontaneity for you as an actor. So when I saw Henry Cavill first, and kind of he expressed to me on Man from U.N.C.L.E. how this process worked, and then I saw Henry, and I kind of was not freaking out, but I was definitely looking for some, I guess, support. But Henry explained, he said, you know, don't worry, it's a very liberating experience, and it really has been. It's been like the most creatively liberating experience of my career, to walk on and to kind of be thrown into this dynamic, not just you, but everyone thrown into this dynamic of spontaneity.
I think it's also, it lends itself to
filmmaking,
not being bogged down
Yeah.
by preconceptions of what you imagine a character to be like, or imagine a script to be like, and you're creating it as you go with everybody. It's a very
it's a freeing experience.
Absolutely, and it's so, you know, everybody has their say, everybody can make a suggestion, and if the suggestion's good, Guy will be like, that's great, we'll keep that in. if it's bad, then you're like,
And
that's not good.
And the construct of the script kind of remains the same. But what's interesting is there's never been a day or there's never been a scene that we've ever walked away that we haven't gone, that's 1,000 times better than like. And you don't understand it at that point in the morning, but like this trust that we've all built towards one another, walking away at the end of the day, you feel liberated. You feel genuine. You feel completely terrified the whole day and like a nervous wreck. But at the end of the day, it's that feeling of like accomplishment. And to have that on a movie of this magnitude every single day and creatively walking away and feeling fulfilled is a kudos to
Special.
Guy. Yeah. Very rarely do you, before you start a project, receive a beautiful email, kind of, showing his leadership in a very humble way.
You got an email from
Of course you got an email.
What do you mean?
Did you not get an email?
No.
No, you
I
definitely.
was like, see you on set, that's it.
No.
It's true.
He sent that I was really.
He signed off with XX.
No, he sent a really beautiful email being like, "Look, I'm really excited for us all to come together," and it just sets the tone as he's the.
Sounds exactly like my email. Copy pasted. That guy. Just copy pasted all our emails. God. No. And on a set, leadership starts from the top. So when you're sort of the lead and number one, there is this sense of responsibility, and you set the tone for the rest of the actors, and what a tone Cavill sets, because he is just an absolute gentleman.
Alan's a big gentle giant.
He's a softie.
He's also so intelligent, so articulate, multi-talented. Like
He's an amazing father to boot.
Yeah.
Which is something both you and I kind of. We have 2-year-olds, and he has a clan of 3 boys. And they're so well, kind of, just good kids. So he's a testament to him.
We're on the boat. We're like a couple of miles out to sea, and we're all doing the scene, and in between takes, Alan is downstairs with the guitar, writing music. And that just like shows you a little bit of an insight of who this man is, because you have this facade of, he's 6'5", like 240 pounds of muscle, kind of like, but he's such a gentle soul and like so creative, and
He's got a man crush on him.
Yeah, I do have a man crush. Him and Cavill. Hero can't stand. Pain in the ass. Why it's important to tell a story like this is that stories have been told before like this, but I think that when you have, and I know this sounds cliche to say, when you have Guy Ritchie at the helm of a story like this, you can look at a painting 1,000 different ways, and there's been many war dramas, political dramas, but when someone is at the helm, and giving a different spin on a narrative that is exciting and enthralling, and I think it changes the way that we experience something that we've seen, or a narrative we've seen many times before. But saying that, this narrative in this time setting, we were talking about this the other day, I don't think we have seen. I think
we were trying to come up with comps, and it was Saving Private Ryan meets Snatch.
Yeah.
And that's a film that I want to watch.
Yeah.
People have to watch this movie because it's going to be a franchise.
Yeah.
This movie is just far too good not to have us all back together again. And I think people are going to be like, holy moly, this is going to be a lot of fun. Seeing where all these characters go. We have Heron, Marjorie, Gus, Lassen, Freddie, Alex, the Apple Yard Man. But there's just, it's just such a vibrant bunch of characters, and Guy brings out the best of that. And there's no better character builder than Guy Ritchie. And it's just one of those films that you're rooting for all of us. we'll just throw out adjectives.
Okay.
And I'll start.
Okay.
So the film that people are going to be watching is something exciting,
Enthralling.
action-packed,
Chic.
funny,
Fashionable.
worldly.
You're gonna win this one. I feel like I'm on
Come
countdown.
on.
Sexy.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah. Especially when Alan's at the helm of the boat, shirtless,
Oh yes, Jean-Paul Gaultier ad.
pulling rope.
Also, I would say a little bit bloody.
Yeah.
There might be some blood.
Yeah.
Heron, you know, he's a guy that's sort of I want to say he's a spy. I want to say he's a spy, a special operative, a man on the ground, you know, undercover in a certain way. And I just love that idea. I've always wanted to delve into characters like that and to do it on this kind of palette, you know, on this kind of canvas. Yeah, it's something I was looking forward to, and it's sort of, you know, Casablanca, you know, and Rick, you know, in his cafe. So, yeah, so that got me really excited about it. Marjorie is just this wild, funny, bold operative that Heron's got to, you know, show around, and together they're going to cause some havoc. It's been fun. It's been fun. Working with Isa has been really fun. She's wonderful. She's collaborative. She's easy to work with, you know, and she's direct. And it's been a real lovely time working with her. Yeah. And of course, as Heron, I've worked mostly with Marjorie. But I do come in touch with the boys, you know, with Henry, the Henrys, and Alan, and Alex, and Hero, and it was fantastic. It's been fantastic working with them. Fun bunch of guys, and just they get to the work, you know. Henry C has been really cool. He's clearly into the work, and likewise for everybody else. And you know, we've just really enjoyed ourselves, and yeah, and really trying to shape something that's different. I've been a very big fan of Guy since, you know, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I was a massive fan of that, and then of course Snatch. So he's obviously one of those directors that I've always wanted to work with, and yeah, it was quite lovely and sane when that opportunity came around with Wrath of Man. But of course, this is a bit more substantial in terms of in terms of Heron, in terms of the size of the character. And so, yeah, so I've been really excited to work with Guy, and it's just been wonderful. He's, you know, he's got his ways. He's direct. He's funny. He's, you know, moment to moment changing of ideas, and you know, and just dialogue, and yet when it comes out, it makes complete sense. With Guy's direction, I think that's just there's just a certain spirit. There's an adventurous and sort of laissez-faire, but yet intense spirit that the guys bring, and I think that should give us something worth watching. It was my first time seeing it, so it was really quite beautiful. And it was special being out there. It was special being out in nature. The water is clear blue, beautiful, yet scary, because there were supposed to be tiger sharks or something down there, you know. It was like through their migration period, so it was a bit of, you know, make sure you do not fall in. Yeah, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Some people can't handle the high seas, but apparently I can. You know, I think when audiences go to the theaters to see this, they would see a big film on the big screen with adventure, with action, thrill and action, with a wild, beautiful, on point Guy Ritchie touch.
I was approached to do the movie by getting an email And in the subject title it said Guy Ritchie, and I didn't read any of the other context of the email, and I basically just wrote back, whatever this is, it's a big fat yes. My experience working with Henry is, I mean, it's inspiring for me as as someone who's still learning his trade, to watch a man command so much respect on set. A brilliant actor, genuinely a brilliant actor. And I told him that one of my favourite performances of his is in Guy's Man from U.N.C.L.E. And there's something about how Henry and Guy work together, and I love Henry in a lot of other things that he hasn't worked with Guy in, but for me to watch him firsthand on this set do the performance that he's doing it's very inspiring, Do I have a favourite action sequence in this film? Well, seeming as Alan takes most of the action and saves me most of the time, I would say my favourite experience watching the action is I have been captured and the boys are coming to save me, and I'm compromised in a pretty unique way, shall we say. And the comedy aspect between Alan and myself that plays out in that scene is quite funny. Lulu's a genius costume designer, and she creates like a kind of a guideline to what she would like, to differentiate each of these characters, especially because we are all disguised as fishermen and sailors, and kind of she's a master craftsman in creating these very unique differences between each character. So really I was left in her hands, and I'm very happy about that. My personal experience working with Guy has been creatively probably one of the most scary and liberating experiences, just in the way that he commands this spontaneity, and feeling completely liberated by the end of the day, but so overwhelmed throughout the experience of the day of filming, because he has a true understanding of the narrative that he wants to tell. He has a true understanding of the character that you're playing, and he is the captain of the ship and steering you in a way where sometimes you feel a bit lost, but it's all for the benefit of the film. I think that when you are so in depth in knowing what your character is, so in depth in knowing your lines, then you can kind of reach this stalemate, and because of the atmosphere that he creates and because of the energy that he creates, you feel completely liberated. It's the most unique experience I've ever had in my career, and definitely going to be hard to walk onto other sets and feel the fulfillment that I feel on this.
So the story is really important to be told on the big screen. I think this is one of the first modern day sort of tellings of the conception of the SOE, which is the Special Operations Executive. It's a band of men and women that Winston Churchill put together to complete, under the cover of deniability, these operations which really swayed the war for Great Britain. And so they were a really integral part of defeating the Nazis and accomplishing the goals that were set. So my character, Freddy the Frog, he's a frogman. So he's a waters expert, a demolitions expert. He's a cool, calm, collected young man who has a very sort of strong and concrete presence. And so when everything's sort of hitting the fan, you can trust Freddy to be, the cool hand Luke of the company. And for me, it was it was really sort of putting my trust in Guy. It was what brought me to the character. It was the fact that I know that each and every single one of those characters on screen is going to have that flair. And so I didn't see it in the initial draft, but I knew they were going to make something out of everybody. And that's what they told us, and that's exactly what's been done. Creating the look of Freddy is always a team effort. We have the amazing head of wardrobe, Lulu, who picks out some of the most phenomenal outfits for all of us. And then Guy always has the last say and always has the last little twizzle on the hat, how we wear the hat. He's a very stylish man. He's got great taste, and I think he's put that into all of our characters. And often is the case that we come on set and he's like, "Ooh, what size are you in that?" You know, looking to steal the jacket after, because especially Heron's costume, he's definitely, Babs is the sharpest chap on set. So a lot of the boys on set are sort of like, "Oh, what size is that, Babs? Oh yeah, nice." So you'll find that a lot of that goes missing by the end of production. And I think generally we're just a bunch of very stylish sailors. And it's such an amazing era, like 1940s and 30s, of like wonderful fashion. And so we're going to bring it back. And we've all said between ourselves, we're like, I think I'm going to adopt like the old breeches and baggy trousers and the woolly knits. So yeah, it's got a real style to it. So Gus and Freddy, I think they go pretty far back. I think Freddy is one of his most trusted men. Everybody on this mission is picked because of their past history with Gus, and I think they've completed missions beforehand, and so it's one of those relationships which has absolute trust, and we know when the captain says something, it'll get done, because the boys will do literally anything for Gus, and trust his judgment, trust his direction, and things just get done with him. I think the relationships between all of us actually has a great sense of humor. We don't have particular sort of characters that we bag on. Often Hazy's at the butt end of certain jokes just because he's the youngest of the group. And so there's always that fun kind of humor. And Lassen is just one of those guys that you love to, I don't know, I suppose just enjoy watching him kill Nazis, which is such a terrible thing to say, but not at the same time, because we do take so much joy in what Alan brings to the character, and that's just this sheer ferocity. And Lassen historically was rather unhinged, so to see that is awesome. So our experiences out at sea have been amazing. A lot of these films that get made these days, it's always on a green screen, it's always kind of, in a studio, and they found the perfect Madonna, and they brought it, I think it was in Europe somewhere, and they brought it down to the coast of Turkey, and we've spent the past sort of 2 weeks filming on it. Being out, like, I've got fantastic sea legs. Alex doesn't have, he probably has the worst sea legs, but he was fine, he was absolutely fine. But to be out there in the ocean on a sailboat is phenomenal. And it just gives this just reality to it all, and it's just gonna look phenomenal on screen. So this is my second time working with Guy Ritchie. I worked on The Gentleman, I played Dry Eye. And had the most amazing time doing that process, and this trumps that, just because of the circumstance and because of the cast and because of the movie. So I'm excited for everybody to see this on the big screen, because I think the characters are just going to pop out like Guy Ritchie's characters always do, and you'll have everyone rooting for them. And that's what we want to do. We're making something that's going to entertain. an amazing, unbelievable historical story to it, but with that Guy Ritchie twist.
This film is based on a true story about a secret World War II mission called Operation Postmaster that was carried out by a commando-style unit known as Special Operations Executive. I actually approached Guy for this role while we were in Turkey making Operation Fortune. He told me about this project and I basically campaigned for it. It so happens that my grandfather was in SOE. He was sent into Albania in 1943 and dropped behind enemy lines to blow up bridges and railways and that kind of thing. And he worked for Gubbins, so it made it kind of personal. So we don't actually really know how he came up with the moniker M, but we believe it came from his middle name, McVean. And he was born in Japan, raised in Scotland. He was an artillery officer in World War I, where he won the Military Cross for bravery. And he was also in the British Army in Russia during the Russian Revolution, and in Ireland during the Irish War of Independence, and that's really where he developed a keen interest in guerrilla warfare. So Churchill believed that the only way to win the war was to fight the enemy at their own game. And he believed that guerrilla warfare was the key to succeed. And he told Gubbins, actually, that he wanted SOE to set Europe ablaze, and that's really what they did. Well, M didn't really get to choose the whole team because Gus March Phillips, who he chose to lead the expedition, really was adamant about picking his own crew. So because M had a soft spot for March Phillips, he really let him have his way. Well, they're both legends in the industry. Jerry has a remarkable eye for great stories, and Guy is a remarkable storyteller, so I'm actually surprised they haven't worked together until now. Well, Guy totally understands the actor's process, and because he creates such memorable characters, I just love working with him. It's such a joy, and he's so funny. I mean, his sets are just filled with joy, so I find myself laughing hysterically every day. Well, Jerry and I made Days of Thunder 33 years ago, and one of the things I love about Jerry is that he's really modest about his achievements. But he's the same guy, just passionate about his work, very modest and obviously loyal to a T. And yeah, I'm so grateful to be back working with him again after this length of time. Yeah. All Guy Ritchie movies need to be watched on the biggest screen possible. Well, Guy likes to paint on a large canvas, and all of his movies are epic, but I think this is the biggest epic of all because it's a classic World War II action drama, and it's a true story.
So, yeah, it's based on a true story, my understanding of which it was the first clandestine mission in modern times, and let's call it, I was going to say this century, but the last one. And it gave birth to special forces in various countries, America, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. Not sure if there's anything else in that equation, but yeah, it gave birth to all of that, and they started to realise how effective special forces could be. So that in itself is enough of a story, and I suppose it was a story about the odds. The odds were, preposterously against them, and that's great aggregate for fun storytelling. I think what has to happen is you have to understand the characteristics of the historical characters that you're playing, the fundamental character of the role that your actors are then playing. As long as you understand the fundamental essence of who they are, then everything else sorts itself from there. The character sort of writes its own script and its own story, if you will. They write their own character. So you do have to do some historical research on who those characters are. And then, as I say, the characters themselves almost give birth to their own dialogue just by the benefit of understanding the fundamental character of who the historical character was. I made a movie previously with Henry called Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I enjoy very much. Henry and I get on, we work well together. I think he trusts me, and he just had the requisite characteristics that I thought we could elicit together. So it just sort of made sense, really. He understood the character very quickly, and once he understood the character, then most of the work was done. Asa was so enthusiastic initially about acquiring this role, and enthusiasm goes a long way in my world. So she was enthusiastic, she was confident that she could do the RP, the accent, which is not easy to do. She pulled that off very well. So it was really just a question of did I believe that she could do it, right? And she could, and she demonstrated her ability to embody that personality very quickly. So it wasn't a complicated choice. Alan played Anders Lassen. Anders Lassen is seen as one of the pioneer characters that the SBS founded their ethos upon, which is a form of controlled and trained and experienced madness. And Alan sort of understood that character pretty quickly. And funny enough, all the characters really managed to, I would have said within minutes, understood exactly what those characters were going to be. I mean, we wrote most of the dialogue on the day. All the actors were up for that. And as I said previously, as long as you understand who those characters are and they're modelling on who they're modelling their character upon, then really all the work was done. That was the most important thing, is for them to understand who their historical character was based upon. And Anders Lassen, who was a Danish aristocrat, I seem to remember, that found himself on these shores for one reason or another, was clearly quite brilliant at manifesting appalling things, which was quite necessary to manifest at that period in time. He's a pleasure to work with, Jerry. He's a pleasure to work with. He's obviously incredibly experienced. A rather gentle soul, interested in creativity, very easy to work with, very collaborative, and it's rather interesting to have such a legend, someone that's so experienced and such a lover of film. I think first and foremost is to understand and appreciate the love and knowledge of film that Jerry Bruckheimer has. It's quite unique. Where you really want to end up is in a world of people that are passionate about their jobs. Jerry is like wildly passionate about his vocation and is as excited now. I can't imagine that he was any more excited in his youth, because it's quite hard to be more excited than he is now. So really, first and foremost, he's a lover of films, and it doesn't wish in any way to undermine the director. And he's rather cunning like that, and I mean cunning in a very positive way. He's there really to collaborate and assist in as many ways as he can. Really, he's just a sort of perfect partner in film. Really, what you want is just partners that are collaborative and generous, really, in the filmmaking process. And Jerry was all of those things: experienced, collaborative, positive, and certainly not lazy. Shooting on HMS Belfast, I think I went on there in 1975 with my mum, where it looked comparatively modern. So, I mean, it's lived on the Thames. I could get there in about 15 minutes on my bicycle from here. It's one of those things that's sat there as a London landmark for as long as I've been around. And then when you find out how many times that boat has circumnavigated the globe, that induces some respect for it. I mean, you'd have no idea that, we shot that 15 minutes from here in the middle of London. That was rather useful, having the authentic bit of kit 15 minutes from here. Selfishly, I wanted to tell a story about the Second World War, because that is the spaghetti westerns and Second World War films were what I was weaned on. And the idea that I could take a sojourn into the creative world of storytelling in the genre, it's a natural fit, principally because it was where the genesis of my interest in films came from. If you're going for the full experience, you've just got to go to the cinema to have the full experience. I don't think there's any ambiguity about that. It's also the sound. The sound that reverberates through your body elicits a completely different experience. So a 40-foot screen as opposed to a 14-inch screen, plus the complication of creating and sophistication of creating the sound. I don't think people really understand what goes into a sound mix. I mean, it's a massive part of filmmaking is the sound mix process. It takes forever, costs a fortune. And you have very, very clever people that do this for a long time. So to really enjoy the full audio experience, you can only really do that at the cinema. So the complete experience, it's really worth going to the cinema for.
Well, Ministry is something that's so interesting because it was files that were put away for years and recently put out to the public. It's Churchill's secret files. And I always like to look underneath what's really going on to find out the core of what happened during World War II. It was such a frightening experience, especially for Britain, who was constantly getting bombed all during this period. And the fact that Churchill had these men that he created and went out and turned the war in Britain's favor and actually got America into the war. So I love to give its verisimilitude, telling stories that are real and true and exposing audiences to something like that. And I think we've done it a number of times, telling true stories, and audiences just love it. There are certain people in this business you want to work with before it ends, for me. And Guy Ritchie was one of them. Guy Ritchie is somebody, he's an iconic director. He's somebody that always brings life and interesting subject matters and picks interesting actors and has such a command of the medium and is a fabulous filmmaker. And that's, my whole career is built on Guy Ritchie's, people who are excellent at what they do and make something really special. He's making a very special movie with a phenomenal cast. Guy has made him come alive and just give him this fascination about Churchill and about what he did, and against the odds of the bureaucracy and Parliament who didn't want him to do it and did it behind their backs to send these men out. And the men were individuals who thought for themselves. They couldn't be in the military because they couldn't take orders. Yet they went on this very dangerous mission, knowing that chances are they wouldn't come back. And they were all just scrappy individuals who were brilliant and thought on their own, went out and did this amazing thing that changed the war. Damien was always our touchstone. He was somebody we always went to for authenticity. If we came up with things or put things in the screenplay that we weren't sure actually happened, we went to Damien. Damien was a big reason this movie got made, just by his expertise and knowing the subject matter, digging into the files, creating this phenomenal book. And that you can't have anything that works this well without somebody like Damien working. I'm really a big fan of history and like to enlighten audiences about what happened in the past, because if you don't know what happened in the past, you're going to repeat it in the future, and that's not good. So this was a story that is something that captured my imagination. And I make movies that I want to see. It's not that I just go make movies because I know the audience is going to love it. I have no idea what an audience likes, but I do know what I love and what I want to go see, what I pay my money to go see. And this is the kind of movie I would go see. It's a big adventure. It's got fabulous characters, and it's a part of history. Now you're not only being entertained, but you're being educated. And that is the best part of entertainment, when you can educate an audience on something they didn't know anything about, that's actually true and real. That's really a wonderful thing to be able to do. Well, we're making a Guy Ritchie film, let's face it. And he's a master craftsman, a master director. And I'm just here to support him, to try to help and do whatever I can to make his life a little easier and get him what he needs and make sure that everything is there for him to make a terrific movie. That's what a good producer does. I think that putting the cast together is something that Guy and all of us, worked very hard on. Guy especially, and Ivan really kind of found the best actors for these particular parts, and a lot of actors that I hadn't worked with and wanted to work with. So I'm very fortunate that they have such a good eye. And you look at that cast, and men are so handsome, it's beautiful. So it's really, they're wonderful to look at, and they're terrific actors. So that's really nice to see them on that big screen. Well, the thing you wanted to get a British director who understood that period of time. And Guy has the experience, has the age, has the knowledge. He's a fan of history and studied history. And he really gravitated towards the material. He hung with us for a long time until we finally got it set up. So he was really somebody that stuck with us because it was a long period of time. I'm sure he did 2 movies or 3 movies by the time we got this one made. You know, I'm a big fan of Churchill. So just to have that history around him, he's an amazing individual. He's somebody that really saved Britain from the Nazis, just with his energy and his speeches. He kept the will of the people to fight this terrible war when they were being bombed every night, and they had no water, they had no heat, they had no food, and yet him on the radio inspired all the Britons to stick with it and not give up, not give in, and he made that fantastic, great speech, which everybody quotes today. When you see Ministry on a big screen, it's going to have the energy and the intelligence that Guy Ritchie brings to a movie. And it's going to take you into a period that was very dire for Britain, and how these men and a woman came and changed the course of the war. It's action-packed, it's romantic, it's got a lot of style and pizzazz and the wit of Guy. That's why people love watching his movies.
I mean, 1940s and 50s are 2 of my favorite decades in fashion history. So to do a World War II movie with Guy, I knew would be a wild and fun adventure, especially costume-wise. Guy cares very much about clothing, fabrics, how everybody looks on camera. So I knew this would be a wild and fun adventure to create a 40s wardrobe through the eyes of Guy and me. It's difficult doing research, especially anything Special Forces, 1940s. Any of the picture references I found were really in books, especially Damian Lewis's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. But I really dug deep into that whole world of merchant seamen, and you can see the textures, the prints, and the style in which all of these lads in those days wore their clothes. So it was important for me that each one of our 5 guys had their own sense of style through not just what they're wearing, but how they wear it, giving them all their own unique silhouettes. So you can essentially tell who's who just by looking at their silhouette. The trick is really to say, you know, what jumps out at you and what do you like about what that man is wearing or what do you not like. And each of them had their own sense of style that they noticed. So it was important to bring that element into their capsule wardrobes that I created, and then when you have them into the fitting, I think it's important to let them take the lead a little bit in what and how they want to wear it, and then I just tidy it up in the end. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm only going to present them with clothes that I want them to wear anyway, so giving them a bit of freedom lets them think a little bit like they're in charge, but I'm still in charge. So I worked really closely with our production designer, Martin John, to make sure the fabrics and the colours that I was using for each of them worked with sets and the environment. And then we've got Ed Wild, our amazing DP. And because we're shooting out at sea, it's really important that all of those colours work out there in this wonderful natural daylight too. So we have Asa, who is playing our leading Lady Marjorie. By far, probably my favourite and most beautiful wardrobe I've created to date. It's just phenomenal. And she has an amazing natural silhouette anyway, which is very true to the 40s, so we had a lot of fun. And she has a lot of great looks as well. So she's a secret agent. There's some action in there for her. There is also the day-to-day, so you've got some beautiful 40s skirt suits. And then we have the fancy dress party, where originally it wasn't the Cleopatra costume. I did have to convince a few people that that was the way to go. Once I put her in the Cleopatra dress, it wasn't too difficult to convince anybody because she looks phenomenal. And then any other excuse I could have really to get her into a new costume, I did, and worked closely with Guy and Max to make sure that we could do that. But her wardrobe is absolutely beautiful. It's all bespoke, all nods to the 1940s, but then heightened for her character and all the action and the journey that she goes through. But then when you're working with a director like Guy Ritchie, who, you know, he's infamous for having a particular type of look and style to each of his films. So then I have to look through it all with his eyes, with his sense of style in mind. And that's when it becomes a little bit more fun. You know, in every one of his films, he has almost like a group or a gang look for everybody. And it was important to me that I created that for our leading lads, our merchant seamen, special forces guys. So they don't just look fantastic on their own, but they look brilliant as a unit. So it's fun, it's exciting, it's action-packed, it's beautiful. One, I think people you're gonna know it's a Guy Ritchie film, but it's not gonna be like any Guy Ritchie film he's done before. I'm excited to see it, so I'm sure the Guy Ritchie fans will absolutely love it.
What interested me? Well, it's a Guy Ritchie movie, obviously, so that's going to be my first interest. Working with Guy Ritchie again, that's great. I think, yeah, no, we're here for, shooting in Turkey. It's a great place to be shooting. The script, again, to do with the SAS and stuff like that, being established very early on in World War II, and knowing the story and the backstory of that is, yeah, really good thing to be part of. Again, filming out at sea was, that's got its own complications, let's just say. Obviously the weather being one of them. Again, prevising that, I went out for a couple of days and I prevised that on the boat. The maid honour sequence we did there, and we put an action sequence together with the guys, just to sort of give everyone an idea of what we could potentially do on that boat. The boat we didn't get well, I certainly didn't get it 2 days until we shot the sequence, which means I had 2 days to put a previs together with 20 guys, basically. We had like 12 or 15 sailors that get onto that boat, and then we have like 3 of the actors that are on there, and they all have to be part of that action in that sequence. So, yeah, I had 2 days to go down there, put a sort of action story sequence together, and then shoot it like 2 days later, which we did, and it was great. The script changed like literally the day before, and Apple's character was now in this his holdout, in this holding area that was he was captured basically. So none of that was scripted. So I then had to make up, let's just say, the dialogue of what was happening within that Nazi camp, where he was, how they were going to attack it, who was going to attack it, how they got separated, as in the actors attacking it, from my perspective. So I sort of was telling the story right at the beginning for everyone to sort of have an idea of how it could be played. And we did something very similar to that as well. Guy did change it up a bit, and he sort of, you know, put the actors here. Alan Richardson's character, Lassen, he's got a bow. How does he use that bow? How does he take out the people? Obviously, when you're attacking some sort of camp like that, you're trying to keep it real, but obviously it is a movie, so you want to just be on the realms of realistic all the time, and then you can just, you know, just dip over the edge if you have to. So it felt right for me to Lassen to take out people with the bow from long distance in the towers and stuff like that, and then they go through the fence and then they attack. Again, the movies that we always put together, it's always, you know, time scale is very short. So everyone has to work really, really hard to pull things together. And working with Guy and his team and everyone around it, you know, not just in Turkey, but the whole of production, we all know that, you know, things have to happen, and they have to happen quickly and efficiently to bring the best out in the movie, I think, yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Guy Ritchie movie. So it's going to be fun, it's going to be exciting, it's going to be great action. And it's going to be fabulous.